In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a 3D effect to your lettering in Adobe Illustrator. To give you a little insight on how I created this logo type, I started out with a sketch, kind of get a basic idea. There's the sketch. And I brought that sketch into Adobe Draw on my iPad, and using an Apple Pencil, I was able to sort of fine-tune my idea and draw it pretty seamlessly and easily. In the past, I would use pen and ink, scan that in, live trace, and then clean up my letters that way because I like that it looks a bit imperfect, that it's not too clean. When you do use Adobe Draw and then bring that vector image into Adobe Illustrator, it is messy. You'll get a lot of anchor points that you have to clean up. I'll show you my anchor point profile here. It's much better than it was. There were probably about 3 times more anchor points when I first started. And the way to clean it up is to just grab your smooth tool in the tool palette and draw over your lines where you have numerous anchor points, and it will essentially maintain the curve. It may alter it a little bit. I don't like that, so I'm going to undo. But it will eliminate a lot of the anchor points. So you have a little bit more control when you use the smooth tool. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use multiple layers and strokes in the Pathfinder to create this effect. You can see the lettering is already sort of antique looking or Victorian. And back in Victorian times, when women in particular would write these elaborate letters like rebus puzzles and use these beautiful letterings, it was a sign of wealth if they were able to shadow their letters and make them look 3D, because who has time for that? Only if you're not working. And if you're not working, it means that you have a lot of money. So that was an interesting cultural marker. So we're going to simulate that today. You'll see that my object here is on one layer. I titled it Bloom Logo. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure my object is grouped. You can go up to Object, Group, or hit Command G on your keyboard. And I'm going to copy this, Command C. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to sit that layer below Bloom Logo, and I'm going to deselect my object on Bloom Logo layer. And you could do that even by just locking the layer. And on layer 2, I'm going to press Command F on my keyboard for paste in front. And the reason I'm doing this is so it pastes in exactly the same place. I'm going to give it a stroke, an obnoxious color that I can see. I'm going to bump that up maybe to 3, maybe 4 points. And you can see I've got some problem areas right here. I can easily fix that by setting my corners in my stroke palette to a rounded corner. And that satisfied that. I do have one little area up here that it seems like I've got an extra anchor point sitting that I need to delete. I need to get rid of that. Okay, good, that fixed it. Okay, so we have the start of our 3D effects, and I'm going to now select that stroke, and I'm sorry, that object. I'm going to copy it again, and I'm going to create a new layer, sit that below layer 2, and we're going to call this shadow layer. I'm going to lock layer 2, and with shadow layer selected, I'm going to hit Command F one more time. I'm going to change the stroke color. I want to make it light gray. And I'm going to increase the stroke, maybe 1 more point, and I'm going to offset it. I'm using my arrow keys on my keyboard, and I'm offsetting it to the right and down slightly. And that looks pretty good. I want to see how it would look with 1 more point on the stroke, and maybe come in a little bit. What I'm looking for is the corners of the letters to sort of line up a little bit. Okay, good. Now with this whole object selected, right, we have a fill, we have a stroke. I want to outline my stroke and make it a shape. I'm going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, And now with everything outlined, I want to make it one solid shape. So I'm going to go to my Pathfinder palette. I'll undock it and show you. And I'm going to click Unite. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a compound shape, but it's going to make everything solid. So far, so good. Okay, I'm going to lock this layer. I'm going to go back to layer 2, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. This is with my pink stroke. And I'm going to unite this. And basically what I want to do is this layer with the pink stroke, I want to use it to cut into my gray layer. And that way I'll create an offset drop shadow, and we could still see the background in between the drop shadow and then the original layer. If that doesn't make sense, hold on. It'll make sense in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to unlock my shadow layer. I'm going to make sure that the object on layer 2 is selected. I'm going to type Command X to cut it, and then select shadow layer and type Command F to paste it in front. Great, everything is on one layer now. To make sure everything on that layer is selected, I'm going to, in my layers palette, click on this little square here, and that's going to tell me that everything is selected. And you could also double check to make sure everything is selected by just moving it, but make sure you move it right back into the same place. All right, with everything selected, now I want to use the Pathfinder, but in a different capacity. I'm going to use the divide function, and the divide function basically takes every shape that is selected, and wherever it intersects, it's going to make a cut. So I'm going to click divide, and whenever you use divide, you have to go to Object, Ungroup, because we want to select the individual objects. Now if I zoom in, you might be able to see where these are individual shapes that were cut, right? So if I move that, you can see. All right, with my pink selected, and the fill is showing pink, so I know my pink is selected, I'm going to go to Select, Same, Fill Color, select all the pink, and hit Delete. And now we have a nice space between our shadow, our drop shadow, and the original lettering. And I can prove that if I bring layer 2 down, and let's choose a nice soft color here. And if I create a shape to sit behind my logo mark, you'll see there is that space in between. And now I can grab my shadow, and we can give it a different color. Hold on, let's select, same fill color, eyedrop our lavender, and let's just go a little bit darker. And now you can stylize your hand lettering. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it's helpful for your own design work that you do.